owner and one of the main guys against it, Floyd Valentine and Grant Goode.
Okay, we're all out now.
We are now.
Good to know.
Is everybody, well, when the red light comes on, we're live.
Oh, you.
Is everybody ready to begin? I will make note that, I'll just call roll, it's easier. Tyler Winningham.
Here.
Neil Reed.
Here.
Shelley Mel.
Here.
I'm here, and Derek Cox is at a Parks and Rec conference, so he could not be here today. We also have Pat and Marshall Moon from Meridian with us. And did everyone receive the minutes of the September 13th meeting? If so, are there any changes to the minutes?
No, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Aye. Pat, I'll let you go ahead and go first.
Okay, good,
Sit
good.
through the whole meeting.
Thank you. I'll go first, and Marshall will finish up. Well, we'll start on page 1. That's a good place to start. I was thinking here on the way here a year ago when we had this meeting, the stock market was down 25% in the first 9 months of the year, and we talked a lot about what perceptions or what forecasts would be, and it was just kind of a general consensus that we were getting ready to go into recession. It was just too how bad of a recession we were going to go in, and here we are a year later, and the stock market was up 20% through July. It's gone down quite a bit since then, but so much has changed. And this first page is kind of a depiction of an idea that I thought was interesting, is that, this just is not a typical business cycle. There's just so many things going on. And really probably what we're seeing is there are just certain pockets of the economy that are kind of going through what we call rolling recessions instead of everything all at once. And all the revisions that we're seeing in the economy and for prospects or whatever are revisions up, revisions better. And that's reflected in this top yellow box there, the Fed, who's been raising rates now for a year and a half to try to cool down inflation. Everybody's been worried that that's going to put the brakes on the economy. They're upgrading their prospects for the economy. GDP is gross domestic product. So in 2023, their original forecast in June was that it'd be up 1%. They revised that in September to be up 2.1% for the year. You can see they also revised 2024 and 2025 up. So those are not recessionary numbers, and those are coming from our top governing economic body there. So what's happening is there's kind of a conglomeration of things that have never happened all at the same time. And now that we're 3 years out of the pandemic, people are working through their savings. And so that's what this top right chart shows. Most people got a little extra money in their pocket during COVID from the government. And rightly so, it saved us. It really did. It was a time where people just drastically needed it. Well, what's happened since then is we've kind of gone through that. We're beginning to go through some other savings there. So it's kind of a drawdown. So these are the forces at work that are different now in that we've got higher interest rates, much higher interest rates. That has some negative things attached to it, like a mortgage rate at 7.5% today instead of 3%. And there's just so many people that can't afford to move. If you take a $300,000 mortgage and you apply 7.5% to it instead of 3%, it increases the payment by 60% a month. And so the purchasing power of people's housing dollar drastically declined. A lot of people will be staying put. And so instead of a recession, what we're predicting is slower long-term growth. So maybe we'll be under trend for a really long time. And, we've talked a lot about unemployment. How when everybody's working, today's unemployment is 3.7% nationally. Here in Conway, it's less. When everybody's working, you don't go into a recession. And when I say everybody's working, we've never really been much below where we are in history. In fact, when I was in school, we said if we could ever get below 6%, that'd be a really good thing. Of course, that was back before schools were very smart. That was a long time ago. And the reason is because of our aging workforce. We may not go back up to 6% or even 4.5% unemployment rate because there's no new workers to take their place. Many people age 60 left the workforce and they didn't come back. And now we've got fewer people graduating from high school every year for most of the next 18 years. And so we just don't have as many people entering the workforce. So we're going to have a lower workforce and unemployment rate probably for a really long time. That impacts government, that impacts for-profit. I know you're having trouble finding qualified workers, and probably in every possible position that you can do. That's not going away anytime soon. And to say geopolitical fragmentation has changed the world, it has. We see what's happening just over the weekend. But what's happening economically is that all these companies that spent 25 years putting manufacturing overseas to cut costs are now have figured out that, well, if something happens over there, well, how do you get things manufactured, and then how do you get them over here? So we're having a complete new conversation about bringing manufacturing back to the United States. That has some really good things applied to it. And then artificial intelligence, by being a disruptor, I can't overstate that. It's just so many ways that that's going to impact us, and it is already impacting us. And did anybody watch 60 Minutes on Sunday?
I did.
The father of artificial intelligence has some grave concerns about its ability, artificial intelligence, and to be used in a way that could be harmful. And it's going to be much smarter than we ever anticipated. Maybe even more smarter than we are in most cases. So
it was a little unnerving.
It was for me too. It was for me too. I try to concentrate on all the really good things that does.
Yeah.
It's going to put a lot of people out of work, for one thing. A lot of people out of work in jobs that can be thought through and not require pay and benefits and work or whatever. So all those things working together has made things change. And so on page 2, I want to talk about how it's affecting the bond market. And so I'm going to show you shortly that interest rates have been going for a long time, down for a long time, but the Fed funds futures pricing, which means what investors are saying rates are going to be in the future, they thought they were going to be down quite a bit a year ago, but now we're just looking like they're going to stay up higher for longer. And so really not start dropping maybe till the latter half of 2024, if that soon. And so for your fund, that gives us an opportunity that we haven't had the entire time that we've been managing your fund, is interest rates are playing a meaningful role in the returns of this fund. And it's a great opportunity for us to take a little less risk and earn some income. So I view that as a positive, higher rates for a longer time. And then the performance of stocks and bonds, when the Fed changes interest rates, when they're raising rates since 1990, stocks have increased during that period and bonds have been kind of flat. When they're paused, and you can kind of consider us in the pause right now. I know they're thinking maybe about raising rates one more time, or maybe they do more, but stocks do really well during that time. And we have had, up until the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so, done really well, and bonds do okay. But when they start cutting rates, stocks don't do very well in that realm. So those are things that we'll be considering. But bonds will be a major part of the portfolio that maybe they haven't been in a while. On page 3, this interest rate story I'm talking to you about has been going on since 1985. Interest rates have been going down. Not very many people remember interest rates at 20% or so. It's kind of interesting to talk to people in this generation who think mortgage rates ought to be 2.5% or 3%, right? Where the long-term average is well north of 6% for mortgage rates. So in 2020 and 2021, you can see interest rates have completely reversed course. And on the bottom left hand shows you that rates in the longer end, which is the 5, 10, and 30-year rates, have been going up since June. So market increase in interest rates. If we were going into a recession, interest rates would be going down. So the market is saying we don't think that's happening anytime soon. And so the yield curve is beginning to flatten some rather than be completely inverted. And then lastly, the Fed is forecasting higher rates through 2024, and the Fed funds projection really above the 2% rate all the way through 2025. So we think things are okay. Looking out from here, from an investment perspective, we're seeing opportunity. The stock market's down a little bit. Your fund was down in the quarter. That always presents opportunities. And then, as I say, these bonds and interest rates are really, really interesting at this time too. I'll turn it over to Marshall
Yeah.
here to talk about the market.
Pat mentioned there's no shortage of uncertainty. If you just look around both in financial markets and just politics, rates rising and higher than they've been in a long time, decreased consumer savings now, and now two international conflicts that are taking up headlines. So before covering your particular portfolio, I just wanted to kind of give you a snapshot of what stocks have been doing both in the quarter and year to date. And so on page 4 there, you'll see these are 3 U.S. stock market indexes, the S&P 500 representing large U.S. stocks, the Russell 2000 representing small cap U.S. stocks, and the NASDAQ, which is more large U.S. stocks that's heavily focused towards technology. You can see in the first month of the quarter in July, stocks were up anywhere from 2 to 5% in that month. And since then, we've retraced all that and finished the quarter down anywhere from 3 to 5%. And so the natural question is, well, why did stocks reverse course like that? And the honest answer is, I have no idea. But on page 5 there, you'll see what I thought was an interesting chart there. You'll see the average monthly return for the stock market dating back to 1926. And you can see where just this time of year is just a generally weak time of year for stocks. And you can see on the right there in September, stocks are up and down 50% of the time. It's generally just a coin flip. So we don't really see anything to be particularly worried about at this point. We're just chalking up to seasonality so far. And then down on page 6, we're going to talk about something that we covered a little bit last time we got together. You'll see the blue line there is the technology portion of the U.S. stock market. You can see it's up really, really big so far this year, up almost 50% at one point and still up close to 40% so far this year. And then the pink line being the general broad U.S. stock market there, up now just shy of 20%. And the green line represents all the other stocks outside of technology, which you can see has really just been struggling so far this year. So we're lucky that the technology sector is a really big portion of the U.S. stock market. It's really helped boost returns. But if you kind of look under the hood there's been kind of a lack of return there. Then finally on page 7, another point of uncertainty is the upcoming election year. But despite that, there's reason to be optimistic. You can see on the left there in presidential election years, although a little bit below average, stocks still return on average nearly 12%. And even better, which gives us some optimism in Q4, is that stock returns in the fourth quarter prior to election years are generally better than average. And then on page 8, you'll see kind of a breakdown of the pension plan's returns. They're down 2.5% for the third quarter. But look at the 1-year number, up 14.1% for the year. And on the right, you'll see the cash flows. You had gains of over 1.5 million for the trailing 12 months. And as Pat mentioned, this time last year, stocks were down big going into the fourth quarter. So we've had a rally. We had a rally in the fourth quarter of last year, and that's continued this year. And finally, on page 9, you'll kind of see the breakdown of your portfolio between stocks and bonds. As Pat mentioned, higher interest rates has given us the opportunity to invest some of your money in bonds that are actually giving you a return. So I went back and looked at your allocation over the last 3 years, and it's crept up from 20%, which is the lowest range allowable by your investment policy statement. And we've continued to add 2 bonds and gotten it up to 27% of your portfolio as those returns have become more attractive. And you'll see your large holdings on the right there. I will note we did take advantage of some of the volatility. We've added to 3 stocks over the last couple months. One being Charles River Laboratories, or what's called a certified research organization. What they do is help companies that develop drugs get those drugs passed through trials so that they can be safely delivered to consumers. I think over the last 5 years, they've been involved in 80% of all FDA-approved drugs. Additionally, we added to Centene, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and Etsy as well. So the last year has been a really good one for the portfolio, and we think there's reason to be optimistic going into the rest of the year.
The return you get on bonds, is that strictly from the issuer making their payments on it and the interest they pay on those payments?
That's most of it, and that's really all of it from the date you purchase an initial bond to the date it matures. You know, it's gonna mature at the same rate, but in the interim, they change value. They change value just like a stock during the day. And as interest rates go up, the price of that bond will go down. And as interest rates go down, the vice versa, that's happening. So as interest rates have gone up, and I'll give you an example. Let's just say we bought a bond that's yielding 2.5% 3 years ago, and we're going to hold it for 5 years, but we're in year 3 right now, and interest rates have gone up where now rates are 5%. Well, the only way nobody's going to pay me par for a bond that's paying 2.5% when they could go out and buy something else at 4%. So what the market does is it discounts that bond and puts it on sale where the 2.5% that you get plus the discount that you'll get until it matures equals 4.5%. So that's your danger of bonds. And we're seeing losses in bond funds and huge right now that we haven't ever seen. They did experience that in the early 1980s when interest rates were going to 20%.
Yeah.
It's now. So the way your bond portfolio, I think that's a good question. The way your bond portfolio is structured, and you'll see on the statement I gave to Lisa, is that you own a lot of them and ranging in maturities from very short all the way out to 10 years. And so what that allows us to do is always having something. We're having bonds mature now that we're reinvesting from 1% to 2% to 5 or 6%.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why we're excited, or at least pleased. Hard to be excited about bonds.
Yeah, that's right.
We're pleased about them.
Great. Kind of like what's happened with our bank interest rates too.
Yep.
And Tyler presents the financial statements. You always get a nice smile for
Yeah.
unanticipated interest.
It's substantial for a fund that, funds that you have available to you.
Mm-hmm.
So are people always coming in and saying, hey, we can do better?
Not to me. Those relationships are managed through Mike Garrett's office, so I don't know if he hears a lot, but I would guess not. I don't think most banks are going to be. They'll have to be competitive to a degree,
Yeah.
because they're going to base it off of, a federal rate of some sort.
Right.
But yeah, Centennial's been very, very good to us.
Yeah, and it's a long-term relationship and would
Yeah.
anticipate, so they do have to be competitive.
Yeah.
With what's going on in the local marketplace.
Yeah.
We're seeing money market fund rates at 5% now.
Well, there's a lot more steps because when we have to take it out to bid, and then we have to, doesn't it come before us to approve
Mhm.
if we move it? So
Yeah.
it's just a lot, but it would be, some effort. I won't say it's impossible, but
Yeah.
it takes some effort
Yes.
to change.
Mhm. Because now we've got, not only everything internally we have to change, we've got so many agencies that we've given
The
our
routing.
banking information to, because they electronically deposit funds to us. We'd have to go and make sure all those get updated.
Yeah, that's like personally, you don't want to change banks unless you have to.
That's right.
Yeah, you got so many.
Because you'll always forget something.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's right. I try to hear from them later.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good thing about that. Those kind of interest rates, the market kind of forces them to be in competition with these other banks, even when they have the business.
Yeah. We've certainly been approached by banks that would like to have our business, and then we kind of tell them, what we've got going, and they're, congratulations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody have any other questions?
No questions, but I did see that you got voted one of Arkansas Money and Politics Best Financial Advisors. So congratulations.
Congratulations.
Was that for the firm as a whole or?
Both, yeah.
Yeah.
Both,
An
yeah.
individual distinguishment. Hey, being modest.
Nice. Thank you.
So, yeah. Good thing. And we're proud to have you on our team. Both of you.
Proud to be here. Thank you.
Grateful for what you do.
All
Keep
right.
bringing us good news.
We'll try to do better next quarter. We will. All right. Good to see y'all.
Yeah, you too. Thanks, guys.
I did send y'all Pat's holding statement. I don't know if you had a chance to look at it just before the meeting. We have several pension refund requests. Mark Knight in the amount of $32,958.10. Edgar Fortuno in the amount of $1,638. Christopher Paxton in the amount of $5,434.56. Rodrigo Dos Santos in the amount of $1,581.13. Amarius Wilson in the amount of $85.17, which gives us a total of $41,696.96. These are all post-tax.
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I will see if I can get Charles at our next meeting so we can talk about the people that never got their refunds out. Does anybody have any new business they'd like to bring up?
No.
No. I'll
Make a
make,
motion to adjourn.
beat me to.
You could second it.
I'll let Neil. I'll second.
Neil, okay. All right.